I'm Becky Yates. Of course, I go by Rebecca somewhat, or most of the time, but officially it's Rebecca. And I am a professor at the University of North Texas in Denton, Texas. And we are involved in next generation program there. I teach courses in speech pathology and audiology. So that gives you a little background. I don't know if I need to add anything more, but that's what I do. And how did I get to ExamSoft? So I was going to explain that to you a little bit. As you see on the screen, there is a image that says experience the next way to learn. And we have a program at North Texas called Next Generation Classes. So it's managed by the CLEAR group, which stands for Center for Learning Enhancement, Assessment, and Redesign. And their goal is to improve student learning. And we have course redesign programs. And so my class, I applied for the program and was accepted and created a class that's a blended class. So part of it's online with interactions they can do, videos to watch, and then there's an assessment involved with it. Part of my course is face-to-face lectures where I meet with them. And then part of it is what we call learning, some different learning things. So we do things like have speakers come in. We do practice like doing an oral mechanism exam, which is something you would do as a speech pathologist. We practice how you would administer a test to a child to determine if they can speak clearly. So lots of things like that. So it's been really fun to do. And so one of the parts of that, I'm going to go to the next slide, is having student learning outcomes. And for me as a speech pathologist, I'm always writing goals for students and for the clients I'm working with, so it would seem to just make sense. So we have a set of learning outcomes that we use that I've written for our course, and this is just an example of how they are. There's 3 levels, and like in this case, the goal says the student will understand the function of the anatomical systems in regards to communication. So that's the big overall goal. And then the next level is they will demonstrate knowledge of the structure and function of systems for human communication. And that's the second goal. And then there was a second level. And there are like 2 or 3 of those under this first goal. And then the specific information is the third level. So this is where they would have to identify structures of the respiratory system, structures of the phonatory system, those sort of things. And so then I was able to write this up, and then I have a really good grasp on what information do I want my students to really, really learn. And that to me is one of the hardest things, is to bring it from a full textbook that someone's written or the full profession, because this is the intro class, and pull it down to very basic things that I want my students to know. So when they leave my class, I want to know that they've learned these things. And of course, there's lots of other things that I add in, because you have students who are higher and they will absorb a lot of what you say in addition. And then you have that group that will do well with what you want them to learn basically, and then you still will have some who don't quite grasp all of it. So that's why I like having these goals, and then I know that when I build my test, I'm matching to the goals. So let me explain how that worked. Do I need to give time for any questions?
We'll do all the questions.
Okay. There's something on the panel that's not letting me move. Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's an example of my exam question. It would say, what is the function of the diaphragm? I think I may have spelled that wrong now that I look at it. It looks kind of funny, but it's probably correct. Anyway, and so all the questions are multiple choice, so they would have 3 choices. And of course, the answer is A, where it contracts, causing the lung to expand. So I would have that as an example of one of my questions. And that question would be linked to, let me flip back, to 1.1.1, and then to 1.1, and then to 1. So at the end of the year, I can look with my data back and see how well all the students did with that topic. As I can look at it at the 3rd level, the 2nd level, and the 1st level. But that's kind of where ExamSoft comes in, because we used to have to do it somewhat manually, and now the ExamSoft does it for us automatically. We rank our questions as being difficulty of high, medium, or low. And of course, at the beginning year, the first time I did this, it was just really my best guess as to whether it was going to be a harder question, a medium question, or a low question. So the first time I did it, I had to just guess at what I thought. And then once I get my test results back, then I know whether it was high, medium, or low, and I'll go into that a little more later. But at this level of course, it was, we wanted to have 80% being medium and low and 20% high. And then if this were a course of some of the other ones I teach that are at the junior, senior level, it would be just the opposite, that probably 80% would be high-level questions and 20% low. And again, we used all the multiple choice format and used Scantrons. Hope I'm not talking too fast. I get carried away sometimes. So once we had all of our test data from the year, I usually give 3 tests during the semester. So I had to manually calculate every exam question to see what percentage of students got it correct. And then I had to match that question to the SLO, and then we could enter data, which had to be manually entered into a program that ended up calculating the results. So I couldn't get information until the very end of the year because we had to have finished all the tests. And the information was really pretty limited in terms of just who got it correct and who didn't get it correct. So that was, one of those things that we just dealt with at that time because we didn't have any other choice and we were just beginning. So the data I found at that point was not very useful or helpful to me because by the time it came, I was well into the next time. What concerns me about this is that the students had to wait for results. So if you're a student and you're taking an exam, you have studied and you're prepared and you're ready to go. And you take the exam and you think you've answered everything correctly. And then you have to wait a week to come back. Well, by then, you've cleared that information out of your mind and have gone on to whatever's next in that class or gone on to other classes. So that opportunity to learn something immediately from something you've done wrong is not very, very helpful. It's kind of like if you let a child do something that they mess up on and then you never correct them until next week, it won't make any sense to them and they won't care. So that's one of the things I didn't like, because they had to wait so long for results. And then even though we would post the exam score, they wouldn't really get to review the exam until about a week later. And so they would have to come to class for it. Well, then I'm taking up a lot of class time, going over it question by question, just so everyone can understand. Plus, just these classes have over 100 students in them, so just the amount of time it takes to pass out the test and the Scantron and then to gather them back in, that takes up your whole class, and I really feel like that's a waste of time for the students and for myself. So, and then sometimes some of the students wouldn't be there, or they would want to come to my office and see the results, which again would take up a lot of time for me and for them too. So those were things that I didn't like, as well as that the results on the entire year I couldn't get until the end of the year. And so clear staff, the people who manage the next generation, we're looking for a system that could help to eliminate some of these concerns. And that's where ExamSoft comes in. And my part of ExamSoft is BYOD, which is not always, it sounds more fun than it was. At first I thought they said BYOB, and I knew that couldn't be correct. But it's BYOD, bring your own device. So it was piloted at the University of North Texas in several different formats. My format is to bring their own device. And we started last spring for the second half of the class, so we could begin to, the second half of the semester, sorry. So we could begin to practice and learn how to do this, because it's, with everything new, there is a learning curve. And so I will say now, though, it's quick and easy, and it's very easy to do, and it's really kind of fun. You can believe making a test is fun. So we've done it this entire fall semester too, last fall, and then again we've already started for this spring semester. So students would bring their own laptop or iPad, with the test already downloaded. So they had instructions given, and so when they were at home, or they could do it on any computer, they did not have to download it and then use the exact same computer. So if they were on campus, they could download it on, when they did the campus. Isn't that correct? I think, or did they have to bring their own? No, they just downloaded it to ExamSoft. I thought maybe I said something wrong, but no, they could download it anywhere and then come to the class, and then they would open their computers or their iPads and then download it once we got into class. And like this year, we did a mock exam at the beginning of the semester that counted 10 points, and that was very helpful to kind of go over those mechanics. One of the things that's wonderful is that with instructions for download, there's a phone number that they can call, that the students can call, because I'm not exactly the most savvy person when it comes to computers. I think my grandchildren, and that gives you an idea of how old I am, but I think my grandchildren are much better at it than I am. It's amazing when you see an 8-month-old scrolling across an iPad, and they just know what to do, and we didn't grow up that way. But anyway, we did the mock exam. The students get to call the phone number for help, which was wonderful. And for me, I've always had Beverly, who is the assigned to the University of North Texas campus, and anytime I would email her or have a question, she answered immediately and was more than helpful, and she came to help us with the tests when we first were trying them out in this pilot. Of course, the first time she came in, I thought she was a student and told her to take a seat, please. And so, because if you knew Beverly, you would understand why I said that. But it's been wonderful to work with Beverly and the support that we have gotten. So we did our mock exam, and everybody did really well. So right now, I hope I'm not going too fast. I feel like I'm moving through this quickly. For assessments, let me kind of explain how you do the assessment. You first have to create a test bank. So I had already done that on my own because I wanted to see that I had a question for every one of my SLOs. So I had already added into my list of goals, under each third level goal, I already had a question written there. So all I had to do was take those questions and input them into ExamSoft, which is a great job for your TA. So I got her to do that. It doesn't have spell check, so yeah, at least she didn't notice it. So you do want to go back and step up again, because we found several errors because she likes to type fast. But first thing to do is you enter all of your questions into a bank, and then they're there. They're there for always. You don't have to go wonder, where did I put that copy of Exam 1? Or where do I have it on my computer? Because I can never find things on my computer. So you have your whole bank of questions, and each one has its own number. It's connected then to the SLO. So it's already connected in there. Now you can keep adding more questions as you go along and connect more than one question to an SLO, which is what I'm in the process of doing now that I have results from some of the testing. So you pick the questions you want from your test bank, and it's just really, you pull up the screen and just click each little box, and then you say add to the assessment, and there it goes. It's in the assessment, and it gives you how many questions you have. You can preview each question, and then you can put it on save, which puts it in a draft format. So you can go back and check it again, or you can have someone else follow up behind you to double check that you've done everything. We use a lot of images, like for labeling anatomy or reading an audiogram, and so you can insert images. We wanted questions to be grouped together to go with that image, and you're able to do that. So we were able to use a lot of things that I like to use in my assessment. Then you have to set up the settings, and that's where you put it. It can be used with an iPad. You want the students to be able to go back and forth from one question to another. Do you want the questions to be randomized, which is something I really like, because you've got this big screen of a computer in front of one student, and the student next to them can see what they have, but all the questions are random, so they may not have the same question, same order of questions, and you can even set the choices to be randomized. So even, they say the one about the vocal nodule is A. Well, for that other person, that may not be A, it might be C, because the choices are mixed up too. And that's very helpful. Those are some of the settings you determine. You also determine at that time what information you want them to have at the end. And I like to show results so they can see the results, and then I like to allow them to review the questions they missed. So that's how you set up the assessment, and then you post it by pushing one little button. You just post it. It's ready to go. So that's when the children, the students come to the class. They download the assessment because they've already done that. They don't download it. You tell them then to download it, once it's posted. And then again, the ExamSoft help desk is available for students to open it. Now, on the day of assessment, so everyone comes to class carrying their laptops and their iPads, and those who don't have one for their personal use, because there always are some students who might not have that, we made a reservation for them in our testing center. So they can go to the testing center and get their test downloaded there. Since it's connected into the university, we don't have any trouble getting them on Wi-Fi, so it's connected into the university network. And then they take their assessment there. And again, it all gets put together, so they can take it there and it gets added in. If we have had a problem with something, or someone needed to take the test early or later for a variety of reasons, they can either use the computer, or we have used a hard copy of the test with a certain Scantron that then is evaluated in the same way. So we did have that option of using hard copies sometimes, although it's much better when you can use the computer. So the students come into class and they're given a password. That's really kind of the hardest thing to do, is to think of what passwords you're going to use. So we came up with different passwords, and they get the password. The last test, it was Maxman. That's the name of my dog. So they now know all the names of my pets. I've run out of pets, so I'm going to have to come up with something different. So they've given the password, and they open the test, and it's just so fun to watch the students' faces when it starts opening up, and they get so involved and so intense immediately. They are involved in taking that test, and they sit there and just work right through it. And what I like seeing is when they push the button, they finish the test, the score pops up, and they'll take their arms and do like that, yes! So then you know they've done well, or then some of them every once in a while have this perplexed look on their face, and you're like, oh dear, that one didn't do so well. But they can see right then and there what they made, and then they can go back and see what they missed, which to me is you're taking advantage of that opportunity to let them learn from their mistakes immediately and not let that incorrect information settle in their mind, but rather to come back. And, I can still remember misspelling the word receive in 4th grade. Seems like the things that we miss are things that we learn more about correctly later. So, making a mistake sometimes can be beneficial for learning. The other thing I like is that if they look at a question and they don't understand why their question was incorrect, then they can raise their hand and ask for clarification. And we'll go up and talk to them quietly, or they can bring it to the front and ask about, well, why isn't this correct? And then you have that opportunity to clear up anything they have confused in their mind. And then it also helps me to know, like what I put on the slide, if my question isn't clear. Because, I know that when I write a question, I think it's perfectly clear. And, seems very easy to me. But then I've had 20 years experience as a speech pathologist, and this is their first class. So sometimes we do have that mix-up. But that's another thing that I like. It's right then and there. I know whether the question was clear or if it was confusing. And so I'm able to keep that and to straighten that up for further testing. So, and the students say they love it. They love knowing exactly what they missed and being able to figure out what the right answer is, and knowing right away and not having to wait. Okay, so what do I do now? That's how we get all our data. Then the excuse me. That very day, I can get a copy of. I can print out a report, and on that report it will tell me each item. It will tell me, like question 4, how many people got it correct, how many people missed it. It will also tell me, I usually do multiple choice with 3 choices, and if 70 people got picked B, which was the correct answer, and then there's 25 people who missed it, and they picked A and no one picked C, then I know that C is not a good choice for me to have, because I'd rather have that 25 divided up on those other 2, so that, meaning that C choice was not very much of a distractor, and it was obviously not the right answer. So that helps me to go back and revise that question and make the answers a little more balanced than they are. And then that's how I'm putting here that to revise the questions and the scoring and improve assessment. One of the things is that I can also go back and see if the questions that I thought was high difficulty, if 90% of the students got it correct, then it's not high difficulty. So then I can go back and either make it higher by changing the verbs, maybe, or doing some 2-level kind of questions with them. And then by doing that, I can balance my test again better. You don't want to have everything be so easy. So I change questions. Sometimes I see things that I might make multiple different points, because you can have certain questions have different weight according to when you build your assessment, so it doesn't have to be every single question has the same number. So I find it very helpful in that respect. It also helps me to think about my teaching, and I think I'll be talking about that in a minute. But again, this is the other thing that I like. Sorry, I'm kind of jumpy right there because I'm jumping ahead, and I want to back up here to the higher level thinking. It also helps me to make sure that I'm giving enough higher level questions, and also that I've asked questions for each of the things that I want to teach, the things that I want to assess the student's knowledge. And that's another way of ExamSoft being so helpful, that it does show me that it tells me how many questions. At the end of the year, after all my questions, it tells me how many items I asked about a particular topic. And then I get a better feedback. And you'll see some of that in a little bit. Okay, this is where I say less stress. This is less stress for me, because I think I feel like I'm always not as well prepared as I want to be all the time. And so when I write, this causes me and puts me in a situation where I have to have my test prepared ahead of time. I try to give the students a full week to download the exam, which means I need to have it ready 2 weeks ahead of time so that I can build the draft. 2 weeks ahead of time I have to get that draft built, and then time to go back and double check it and make sure I have everything in place. So that also helps me with my teaching, because then it's refreshed in my mind of what I'm going to be asking on the assessment, and I can make sure that I emphasize those points during the lecture. And not to the point where I'm giving the question away, but just to make sure they've all had an opportunity to review that. And then, just to give me an overall picture of my test. And then, let's see. Look at getting it ahead of time is really helpful. It's up and it's there. And then sometimes I'll see that students, like last year, I noticed that with my results that the portion that we talked about hearing, that the students last year did not do as well on it based on the ExamSoft results. So this year, because of that, I switched and started teaching the hearing component first, because I felt like we kind of got crowded and rushed at the end of the semester, and that was my feeling, but my data backed up my feeling. So that was good for me to know that I was on target. And so this year I switched the order in which I'm teaching the class, because that's a topic I want them to really understand. And so we've seen from the first test that they did do much better on this portion of the work than they did last year. So that was another way where it helped me. So, oh yeah, the grading is automatic, things like that. This is an example of a report. Of course, it has just zeros on it right now, but they show you different things that you can take. This is, I don't know why this one shows the zeros, but it's the one we have. But you can see that It gives you your question going from the left in the blue bar. You get the question number, and then you get the number of correct responses. And then you can see this point visceral is something you would use. Oh, I didn't think about using the mouse. Thank you. I'm used to having a little clicker. So there's different things here that how many gave you the correct answer. I don't know, 19 unanswered. So different scores. You come in here and you can see all your different scores. And although this isn't real helpful because it doesn't have any numbers in it, but you can see the types of information you would get. You can see how the top 27% scored and how the lower 27%. So this top 27% is that group that you want to give them a lot of those higher level questions that you're focusing on. So that's just a quick little idea of how the printout. There's another one later that is better, I think so. Oh, there it is. That is the one. So here we are in the class. We had 3 assessments. This one was over 2 assessments. So here was the one. The student will understand the function of the system regards to communication. We had 30 items that covered that. And score for the whole semester was 87.51 in that category. And then you see we improved 9%. So from the first test where they took it until through the end of the semester, I was able to recognize that they didn't do as well as I wanted, and then would build up, emphasizing that more in the rest of the semester. So when we got to the final, which was cumulative, we could get some better answers for that. Then again, here you see the 1.1, which comes in and gives you the same sort of information. Now then here, when we come to 2.1, they did really well in understanding normal language. And in here, they did really well in understanding those definitions. So you can see there's a few items there. They did really well, but they didn't do so well on speech sound disorders. So I know I need to really work on that. They did well here in fluency, and not as well in swallowing and voice disorders. So it gives me a good idea, although you see they didn't improve much here, but they probably didn't have to. So you can see that you can start getting lots of data from here, and again, that's not the data that shows you item analysis, but that's one's really helpful to me too. So, and it's really nice to have something to back up what you feel, that you think that question was too hard, that question was too easy, but you actually have documentation to show that it was or was not how you felt. So, what do I think the benefits are? The benefits to me are what I've said here. There is very secure exam review. I've talked to another professor with whom I teach, and what we would like to do, we have a master's program at our university in speech pathology, and to be certified by the National American Speech Hearing Association, we must teach according to certain standards. So we have standards that we have to address in our curriculum. Well, how do we know we're addressing those? You know, I think in the classes I teach that I'm doing that, but I'm not sure, but I think I am. So what I'd like to do, and we would like to do this, is to connect those standards, write those standards as our SLOs. Instead of creating them, take those national exam standards and attach them to each class that we have, and let each professor, then we know who's going to be teaching certain things. And you know, we might see that we spend a whole lot of time on one subject and very little time on another point that's considered important. So I think that will help us to give a better balanced program for our graduate students. And the question that was raised was the security of the exam. And I feel very secure when the students take this exam. They cannot go to anything else on their computer. It locks down things. And they can only do those things. They can't just go look for another answer somewhere else. The other thing that's really nice is that the student gets a report. And one of the things that they really like is to know their rank. So you can put them, when they take that exam, you can have it on the setting to say you made a 94%, but you're ranked 45th. Well, that tells you that, hey, that's a good grade of 94, but not compared to everybody else. Or I made an 85, but you're ranked 5th. That tells you, well, I did better than almost everybody. So it gives you a sense of where you are. So a rank can impact a person in a different way, especially when they see a really big number as a rank. It reminds them they need to work a little bit harder because they're not doing as well as anyone else. But they get those kind of reports. It also reports to the students, you did well on this part, but you had struggled in this area. And then that helps the student to figure out where they need to put their time in studying. So that's one of the nice things about the report. And then again, I said they get their score upon exit. And then we saw that back on that chart that we had an overall improvement of 8.23% when we looked at our data. But we also at our university use a program called Blackboard, which is the system where you post your PowerPoint presentations or announcements, or you can email. It's also where I keep, there's this grade center you can use. And so I post student grades in Blackboard. So if they have any questions about their grades, then they can come to me rather than waiting till 2 days after the final exam and asking if I could just give them something for 6 extra credit points, because they're only 6 points away from a different grade. But there's one button I push on the ExamSoft. It just says push to Blackboard, and I push the button, and the grades go automatically to Blackboard. They're posted, and they're there and available. Even though the student already knows what they've made, it's there now with the rest of their grades. So overall, I think that's kind of the end. Overall, I would say that I've been very pleased with the program. It's not difficult to learn. I found it very simple, and I feel that I am I'm more confident about what I'm doing because the data is supporting what I think is happening. And where there's places that it doesn't support, then that helps me to become a better professor. And I think it helps the students to be better students. And they really like using the computer, and it's like personal to them to take this. So been very pleased with the program and the support we've received from ExamSoft. So is that long enough?
Yeah, you did great.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Dr. Yates. We're going to go ahead and open up the forum to questions. Again, if you do have questions for Dr. Yates, we encourage that. If you will go to the right-hand side of your screen on the GoToWebinar control panel and go under the questions portion, you can type a question there. I'm going to go ahead and read them out, and then Dr. Yates will answer to her best ability. And so if you have any, now is the time to go ahead and put them in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The first question that we have is, does your program have a laptop or tablet requirement?
No, it doesn't, and that's why we use the testing center, so that it is available for every student. We did try at one time to bring in a set of laptops that the university owns to add to the students, but and you could easily do that if that's not too complicated. In our case, we decided to use the computer lab for testing.
Okay.
Or the testing center with computers for testing.
That's great, perfect.
But I think that might be a good idea to add that as a requirement.
A laptop or a tablet requirement, absolutely. And there are, I know that's probably not as feasible in some undergraduate programs, but you'll find that a lot of our graduate programs, especially in the health sciences, do have laptop or iPad requirements within their programs. But yes, lab computers within campus, and then also Scantron ability is there as well. Okay, next question. What if a student downloaded the test but didn't show up at the exam? Could a student get the password from another student and access the test outside of class later?
No. And there's, I couldn't tell you the mechanics of how that works, but there's only you put in a framework of time that they have for downloading the assessment, and then we see during the test how many have been uploaded. And there is a way for them to like sometimes I did have a student who came to class and forgot their laptop, and so I'm not sure how they did it exactly, but they were able to do it where they could reverse the download, and they can't upload. There's only a certain time frame for uploading an exam too.
Exactly. So yeah, just to elaborate on that a little bit,
y'all know more about it than I do.
There are definitely settings that you can put into the system to require the password be used within a specific amount of time. And then there are also download and upload time frame requirements that you can choose yourself, whether it's on your course level or within the program level on how that will work. So, and just as a little bit of background, ExamSoft actually hosts 42 out of the 50 state bar exams in the U.S., so security is a huge concern of ours. It's kind of what our foundation was built on. So yeah, definitely we've got the password thing covered for you. Next question was, how large are the classes that you're using ExamSoft in?
My class usually ranges from a minimum of 100 to 122. I know that's just my class, but I know there is one class there that is 300 or 400 students that they're using ExamSoft for, and have been very pleased with it there also.
Great, perfect. Next question is, my program uses mostly essays or student projects for assessment. Is there any type of rubrics capability?
Yes, that has just become available. I have not used it yet, so I'm still at the multiple choice for my program. And the reason I did that is because I started with multiple choice to use Scantrons because there was no way to grade 100 projects. So that's one of the reasons that I've liked using the multiple choice. And then we have also provided at our university some training on how to write your multiple choice questions so that you can get some good, strong questions.
Okay, and can you also tell us about any other formative formats such as that other than multiple choice, like fill in the blank?
Yes, there's been fill in the blank and some short answers that I've been told about. And then, of course, I think I'm not sure all of them. You would probably know more about it than I do, but I know that some people are trying to use some of those other kind of formats, but I've paid attention mostly just to the multiple choice.
Yes, so there are different formats that you can use in terms of just using the basic exam intelligence software. And then we also do have the rubrics capability. So if you have an essay question or a group presentation or a research paper that you're grading things that's more of a subjective format, you have the rubrics option to grade. And then you can tag each rubric dimension, if you will, to learning outcomes as well. Mm-hmm. And so then you'll be able to pull that data in the same way that you would from a multiple choice question. Okay, next question. Let's see, when testing or with the beta trials, do students generally perform better? Is stress or anxiety lower?
I really think it's lower. They seem very comfortable with the computers, the electronic devices. They like that they can go back and forth. There's a setting you can put on there to remind them that they have missed a question. And that's very helpful because, I mean, how many times do we miss questions? And then they can go back and review it again, so it's not like they give an answer and that's over. So I like that capability for the students. And they just seem very comfortable with it.
Great. And that's important to,
Mm-hmm.
that they be comfortable to be able to use the software and
yes. And I was going to say too, when they finish, they have to upload their exam before they leave, and we give them a little card that has a little check mark on it that says congratulations, that matches what they will see on their screen, because then sometimes they think they finished if they just close their test and don't realize they haven't uploaded it. So they know they can't leave until they give us the green card and show that they've got that on their screen, and that's been very helpful for them to get through that.
Okay, great. And that actually leads really well into the next question that we have is, does the student have to have a continuous internet connection during the test session or just at the time of download and upload?
Just at the time of download and upload. And so that's one. If you have a room that doesn't have good Wi-Fi, that can be a problem, but we're in a really good room this year, and that's one of the things the university is getting ready to do is to add much better Wi-Fi access. Mm-hmm. So they only have to upload it when they're finished, and they're usually finished at a variety of times. So you don't have everyone at once trying to get on the Wi-Fi and upload.
Yeah,
but they can't leave until it's uploaded and they're finished.
Absolutely. So, and that's a really great question, because I know that that's a problem for some, larger institutions that have gigantic lecture halls full of students. If you have an internet-based testing system or a web-based testing system going on, it's almost impossible to be able to provide continuous, perfect internet connectivity or Wi-Fi connectivity to everybody. So being able to give the students that the ability to download the test up to a week in advance, to have it all set up on their computer and then just show up to class, open that exam and get started. And then you do have the ability to let the students leave and then go home and upload it from their home, Starbucks, the library, whatever. But then obviously some programs or courses do require that they do it right there in the lecture hall too.
And we're doing it just because we want to make sure that they
definitely
figured out how to do it. Another thing's nice is if you have a lot of electrical outlets in the room.
Definitely.
That's helpful. But if something happens and their computer crashes in the middle of the exam, there is a restart or reset system that's worked into it so that it doesn't get totally lost. And I can't remember exactly how that's worked, but we've had to do that once on someone whose computer crashed or went out, and so they had to reboot it or something.
Okay. Next question that we have is, are all tests administered in class or in proctored settings, and any experience with out-of-class or online exams?
We do have some this class also does online exams. I look at the online exams more as a learning opportunity for the students because I do allow them to do it twice. It's a way of demonstrating that they have done the readings and they have done the activities that are required. And those, again, are part of it, but I see those as learning. It's not really measuring SLO learning. Even though they deal with SLOs, I see that as part of their learning. I've used online assessments in many of my classes, and because it's online, you cannot keep, where they can do it anywhere. They can be together doing it. They can be Googling anything they want to along the way. So there's just no way to guarantee that it's their knowledge. And so that's why I've not used online exams as assessments for my learning outcomes.
Right. And just to answer the second part of that question, ExamSoft can be used together with programs like ProctorU or something like that if you do have a program that is online only type of thing, but that's not something that's combined within the software at all.
We use Respondus, which is a separate from ExamSoft.
Right.
One thing I like about ExamSoft too is that that you don't have to, in the grading, you don't have to add the column for it. It will also add the column as well as the grades.
Absolutely. Last question that we seem to have, and we do have a little bit of extra time, so again, if you do have questions, now is the time to pose them. Last question that I have at this point is, what are some of the experiences other faculty members within your program have had? Have they been as positive as yours?
Yes, they have. The ones that have the 200 to 300 person, or even up to 400, I believe, they'll use the test center for that. So that's been especially good. My biggest problem at first was the Wi-Fi access, because when we tried this last fall, we were in a room that wasn't always the most reliable, but we were able to work that out, but because we first tried to have everyone download as practice together, and that was not good. So, but the other people, yes, I think they've really enjoyed it. It saves them so much time. Even just if you're running scantrons of 200, 300 people, that takes time. And then you have to physically record those grades. So that has saved them a lot of time, just the physical work of scantrons. And then you don't have those matched to your SLOs. So, I mean, there just takes, I just think that's just a lot of manual labor that doesn't need to be taking up your time.
Absolutely. Okay, that looks like just about it. I want to thank everybody for attending this afternoon. We know that your days are full of all kinds of things, so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Again, just for anybody who might have showed up a little bit later than when we started, This session has been recorded, and we will be getting an email out to everybody who attended and also who registered for this webinar within the next couple of days. That will provide a link to the recording as well as a copy of the slide deck in case you would like to share with other colleagues. Please feel free to do so. If you need any other information about ExamSoft or you have questions for anybody here, please feel free to reach out to us. Our address is info@examsoft.com. With that, I'm going to say thank you so much to Dr. Yates for coming today. We really, really appreciate it. We have her in office. Usually when we do webinars, it's remotely, so this is a real treat for us. So again, thanks to everybody who is here, and we'll be reaching out to you with that email in the next couple of days.